All right. So, welcome back. I was going to probably do some more logging and stuff, and then nighttime came, and over the night you can probably see from here, which is an awesome view, by the way. I climbed up on top of our house to just get this awesome view of our little farm here on Goldcrest Valley. All three of our fields are ready to harvest. So I don't even remember what all three of our fields are at this point. What do we got? Fruit types. Let's see. We have soybeans in field 12, oats in field 14, and canola in field 15. So instead of doing any logging or forestry work, it, I think, makes the most sense to start harvesting. And then we can get those fields replanted and go from there. So yeah, it's gonna be kind of a harvest day, which is good because that's one of the major ways to make money here, especially in the early game. We got to be able to get our fields going and replanted. I'm just going to go ahead and start here on the canola field because I'm right here. We will end up baling the straw from the oat field as well, but for right now, I figure if we do the canola field, if we get the oat field done, then I can have a worker start working on harvesting the soybean field while I do all of the baling. Should be pretty easy. Come on. There we go, cruise control. On. This series is coming along nicely. You know, it's Monday, November 15th, and we are just 1 week from the release of Farming Simulator 22. And I think, although we're probably not going to get super far into this Let's Play, we've gotten to experience a lot of the uniqueness that Farming Simulator 19 had to offer, I think. As far as, you know, the new contract system, the new lighting system, which looks really cool. We've seen some of that new stuff. We haven't really dealt with horses yet, so I think I would like to get into horses, and I think that might be our next thing. Once we harvest the oats and we have, you know, that major way to feed them, I think it makes a lot of sense to then get into horses and experience those. And then we will have experienced kind of a lot of the new things that FS19 brought to the table. Certainly not everything, and we're not going to make it through an entire game, or, you know, whatever you might consider the end of a farming simulator game. We're not going to get up to the point where we have all the really big equipment and own the whole map or anything like that, but we will get to experience a good amount of the game in a good number of the variety of things you can do in Farming Simulator. So I think this will be, it's a good kind of reminder of what Farming Simulator 19 is like before we go into 22. I can't see anything here. There we go. That's much better. Okay. Hopefully I'm still on track. Yes. Good. The closer and closer we get to the release of 22, the more excited I'm getting. It's waiting 3 years for the release of the next Farming Simulator game is, you know, tough. We're used to only having to wait 2 years, and even then, in the last, you know, month before it releases, you tend to get pretty excited. But with 3 years worth of development and some of the new things that Giants have built into the game that we've already seen, have already shown off publicly, it is exciting. I'm really excited to get to play with the production chains and see how those work in the game. And of course, seasonal cycles. You know, that's going to be a big one. I cannot wait to start just a regular playthrough and see how the game goes, but then I also really want to get in, you know, in a game where I just give myself a bunch of money and start playing around with the production chains and just experiment and see how all that works, because as far as gameplay goes, I think the production chains are really going to bring something to the game. I mean, if you play on PC and you play with mods, you know, you're probably familiar with the Global Company mod, and the Global Company mod and a lot of the sort of add-ons to it, I suppose, brought production chain capabilities to FS19, and those were quite enjoyable. I know I played on a couple maps that incorporated some of that production chain capability and just generally utilized some hits that utilized that Global Company functionality. And it was fun. It changed the way that certain parts of the game were played. So I'm excited to see that come to the base game where everybody can kind of enjoy it. But I'm also curious to see how Giants implemented it, because I do get the feeling that it's going to be a little bit more simplified than what we saw in a lot of Global Company mods. That is sort of the way Giants tends to do things. Farming Simulator on a whole is it's a very simplified farming experience, and I would imagine they'll take that kind of functionality that existed with Global Company, simplify it a little bit, make it a little more engaging, or a little bit less of a learning curve for maybe the casual gamer or the new Farm Sim player, and that's kind of what we'll have. And I don't think there's anything wrong with that necessarily, but we'll just, you know, the devil is in the details, so to speak. You know, until we actually get our hands on it and can play with it, we're not going to know whether it's maybe overly simplified or whether they did a really great job. And everybody's opinion will probably vary. I tend to come down on the side of, I think Farming Simulator as a whole is overly simplified. But now that they're building seasons into the game, that's one huge factor for me that I always thought was missing. So, one more week, we'll be able to play it, and we'll be able to, you know, give honest opinions. We'll be able to decide for ourselves whether or not we like what Giants did in this 3 years between games. One thing I can tell you I can miss just playing this right now is, and I've said it before, some kind of guidance steering. Now, this tractor, this combine, would not really have had, most likely would not have had any kind of GPS-based system. Although I have seen in real life kind of generic systems that you can fit onto older tractors. I don't know if I've ever seen it on a combine, but I have seen it on older tractors. So tractors that from the factory did not have the capability for GPS and auto steering and things like that. But you have these kits that you can fit to them to give them that capability. And that's pretty cool. I like that concept. It's something I think could carry over. And it gives you that excuse, I guess, to have guidance steering on much older equipment like this combine, for instance. It's not too bad right now because we're working on some pretty small fields, but just the ability to set that guidance steering and know you're going straight is really nice. And I very much miss that. And it's such a big part of modern agriculture around where I live. You know, I mean, basically everything from the tractors that do the field work, the planting, to the combines that do the harvesting, and even the tractors that are running the grain carts during harvest, the auger wagons during harvest, they're all equipped with GPS. GPS now, and the capabilities that modern GPS systems have in agriculture is just amazing to me. I was riding with somebody just, about a month ago, I guess it was, and they were harvesting soybeans. And from the cab of the combine, from the driver's seat of the combine, the driver there could control the tractor that was driving the grain cart. He could move it forwards and move it back to try to fill it up more evenly, and all from his little control stick in the combine. The guy who was driving the tractor with the grain cart basically drove it up into position, or roughly into position, and then kind of engaged his whatever guidance steering or his GPS system, whatever, and then the guy in the combine could basically take over. It's just really cool, There's an offset built in there, so it keeps the tractor a certain distance to the side of the combine, and then the combine driver can move it forwards and backwards. I thought it was really cool, and I wish we could see. I want to see some of that capability come to Farming Simulator. I mean, one of the biggest attractions of Farming Simulator, I think, has always been you get to drive these really big, really expensive machines. This is machinery that a lot of people would never get to even experience in real life. So you kind of are getting that experience. But I think to not have any kind of GPS system in it, with all the modern equipment that Farming Simulator incorporates, to have no GPS system built in is I think just missing out a little bit. You're leaving one of those major aspects kind of off the table. We're actually almost a full grain tank. I did not think we would get a full grain tank from this field, and we are just about there. We're gonna get one full grain tank plus like almost nothing, probably. We'll put this in our silos, just like we did the very first harvest we did on this field. I'm kind of, at this point, we're not hurting for money. It certainly would help to have more money, but we're only on day 2. I can't remember exactly when great demands start to kick in. It's either on like day 2 or day 3 where you start to get great demands. We have a bunch of grain in our silos because we started on the easy mode. We started with some grain in the silos, and I'm kind of trying to hold off on selling that if I can until we start to get great demands for it. Really maximize the money we get from all that grain. So, kind of by the same logic, what we harvest here, I'm really just planning to put in the silos and save till we come across that great demand. I really thought we would fill up on that little strip, but we did not. Oh, we'll go around this way. Something I also would like to see come to the game is the ability to bale canola straw. It's, I guess, maybe a fairly minor thing, and I'm not overly familiar with it because here in the Midwest United States, we don't grow canola. I've never actually seen. Hold on. What am I attached to? I don't want. It's not what I want either. I can't tell where I'm at. There we go. I wish they would change the color of that little tractor and implement icon from white to something else, because it's really hard to see when it's up in the sky. Anyway. I've never actually really seen canola in real life. No one around here grows it. So I'm not overly familiar with this, but based on some of the stuff that I've heard, watched on YouTube from European farmers, it seems like canola straw is a thing. It is done fairly regularly, baling it or using it at least for something. I don't really fully get it, but since that is a thing, again, it would be nice to see it in the game. I know around here, Doesn't happen a ton, but there are some people who actually bale the corn stalks and the kind of, I don't know, for lack of a better word, the trash that combine spits out when you harvest corn. And then they actually go back through the field, mow the corn stalks down, and then bale that up and use it for animal bedding. It's not super common, but it does happen. So again, it just kind of, there have been mods that have added some of these capabilities in, and I just kind of wish, as a general rule, if it's a possibility in modern agriculture, it would be nice to have it in the game. Obviously, you can't do that with everything, or the game just gets way too complicated. But still, it would be nice to have the options. We also, I didn't think about this, but our grass. Come on, grass. There we go. Our grass is regrown, so we actually are at the point now where we could fully handle horses. We would need to get a couple more pieces to actually be able to make hay. Right now we have a baler and a wrapper. We would need a tedder and a windrower, because all we have a windrower? No, we don't have a windrower, because all I did was mow with the baler behind, didn't I? That's right. So we would need a tedder and a windrower in order to make hay, but once we've done that, we're fully ready to take care of the horses. I don't know if, can we see anything? Nope, can't see anything yet because we don't have the animals. We'll have oats, we'll have hay, we'll need to get a water tank. That's kind of the other thing that we'll need to get in order to take care of the horses. But that's all pretty easy and relatively affordable. Hopefully we can, I'm hoping we can afford to do all of that without having to sell any of our grain. If we do need to sell a little bit of grain to make that happen, then we will. It beats taking out a loan. So if we need to sell some grain, we'll sell some grain. So in terms of grain, if you guys haven't seen it already, because we did a wheat harvest on this field before, we have actually 23,000 liters of wheat in our silos, about 11,000 barley, 12,000 oats already, and 10,000 canola, 13,000 sunflowers, 10,000 soybeans, and 11,000 corn. So we already have, roughly 10 to 11,000 of most everything. A little more for some of them. Some good amounts. So, if we sell something like soybeans or sunflowers, we could make a pretty good chunk of change from those, which help us out. But if we can wait till a great demand, we'll make even more. And we're about to put another, probably close to 7,000 liters of canola in our silo. So that's awesome. Once we get this field done, we ought to set our workers straight back to preparing this field for the next crop. What should we do? It would be fun to do something like cotton, because that was a new crop for FS19 as well. The downside to doing something like cotton is it's extremely expensive. I don't have the John Deere Cotton DLC. I have no idea how much that harvester is, but the base game case cotton harvester is like $400,000. So even to lease, it's gonna be quite expensive. And then you need a trailer that can handle the cotton bales, so it's not cheap. Even to lease it, it's gonna cost us $20-something thousand. There's no way we'll make that back on a field like this. However, any of our fields, I don't think we would make $20,000 back. But this series isn't really about making money. It's about showing stuff off. I'm not going to go in and cheat money in, but by the same token, I'm not going to worry too much about making the most sound financial decisions at this point, because we really just want to show off the game. So I think maybe what I'll do is plant field 12, our biggest field, with cotton, and then when that's ready, we'll lease a cotton harvester just to be able to do cotton once. Whoa, we want straw. Stop. Hired worker. Stop, man. I did hire a worker because, there we go. I want to get this field back to being worked. I'm not ready for you yet. You. Nope. I want the tractor. There we go. And I need to change this before it drives me crazy. There we go. Hey, much better. Alright, where is... We have to have a cultivator of some sort, don't we? There it is. Tiny little one. Man, I'm going to want to upgrade equipment relatively soon. This stuff is tiny. Actually, you know what we ought to do first? Before we cultivate, we ought to go ahead and get one of our fertilization states in. So let's go ahead and hop into Fiat. Start that dude up. Hit the camera button, even though I don't want to. I love this tractor. I've used this tractor so many times in FS19. This ends up usually being my do stuff around the yard when I have animals tractor. So it often goes on the feeding wagon when I have cows or stuff like that, because it's slow, it's not super powerful, so it's not the most useful. I mean, it does have 150 horsepower, so it's not exactly a small tractor, but it is slow. So I don't necessarily use it a lot for farming tasks, but it's such a great tractor to just use around the yard to take care of the animals, I think. But I end up using it all the time for that. Alright, we'll set this hired worker off on fertilizing. There we go. And as soon as he is done, well, actually, we'll go probably take over for him. And we will put this guy, we're going to put a hired worker on here, because this is a job I don't necessarily want to sit here and do the whole time. With a 3-meter cultivator, it'll take quite some time. We'll let the hired worker handle that one. Good. Oh, whoa. We better... Yeah, we better take care of this. You know, I have the inspector mod on, but another thing I wish was in the game somewhere. The fact that I can just look up on my screen real quick and see that my harvester is about 21% full. That's really nice. Now, I know that capability might not be extremely realistic if you're trying to go for realism, but most farming equipment or farmers have communication devices, whether they use radios or cell phones at this point. They have some way to communicate with each other, so it's not outside of the realm of possibility that I could call up or radio my harvester driver and say, hey, you know, how full are you? And then know whether I need to come unload them or not. So I don't know. It's such a useful thing. I really wish it was part of the game. Maybe we'll get that functionality at some point. Man, it's field work time. It feels good. I don't even remember what I have crop growth on, but it doesn't really matter. It feels good to be working our fields, even though I'm still fairly convinced you make more money doing contracts on fields than you do from growing your own fields. It's still nice to work in your own fields. Feels productive. was going to do the drive the fertilizer, but he's already done. So there's no point in that. And then I thought, well, I also need to bail, so maybe I'll just go do that. We're gonna move. We gotta move the fertilizer guy first, though. Or we're gonna get in trouble. It's gonna be a while before he's in the way, but he will eventually be in the way. We didn't hardly use any fertilizer to do this entire field. Fantastic. Fertilizer's expensive. Let's go park him over here out of the way until we're ready to fertilize this field 14. We may end up putting him on the trailer at some point, just a guess. Harvester is still only 40% full, so we're not really in a hurry. You know, another thing that would be nice to see come to Farm Sim at some point is tires that actually make a difference. So, you know, it's a little weird, at least it looks a little weird to me to be doing some kind of field work with just narrow tires on it. Obviously, these tires are for not damaging the crop while you're driving through it when it's grown. But there's no real benefit. There's no benefit in the game to switch out tires. You know, in real life, you would have the added benefit of less soil compaction and better traction. But in the game, those things don't exist. Traction isn't really a thing. Or, I guess, more correctly put, the wheels, the different tires you have on don't make a difference to your traction. Where a wider tire might, in real life, actually make a difference to the amount of traction you can get. In this game, it doesn't. So, that would be nice to see come to the game, because if you have the ability to switch out tires on tractors, it would just be nice for that to be meaningful. Row crop tires that don't damage your crops is really the only one that has any real function within the game. You've got all these different tractors that you can do wide tires and duals and all this other stuff on it, but it doesn't actually do anything. So that, you know, wish list. I doubt we're going to see that in 22. I haven't seen any indication of that, but it would be nice. Add it to the wish list. There's always a wish list. Every time we get a new farming simulator game, it only takes about a month or two before people are starting their wish lists. In this case, though, with Farming Simulator 22, I feel like Giants have added some things that people have been asking for, that have been on people's wish lists for quite a while. Seasons being added to the game, you know, that's been an ask for many, many years. And I think production chains, once people saw the global company mod and that kind of capabilities, I think that was a big ask for people too. I do try to keep in mind that Giants has to balance different asks or different wish lists, if you will. Different people are asking for different things. I know I watch some YouTubers and they're playing the game and they're talking about how they really love this game for, you know, these certain reasons, and this is what they would love to see in the next one. And, you know, sometimes I find myself completely disagreeing and saying, like, why? Those are like the least important features. Why, you know, no, we need to get this. We need better physics. We need deformable terrain and all that kind of stuff. But it's just personal opinion, and everybody's going to have their own. I know I personally would love to see some kind of real terrain come to the game. You know, when you plow, it's actually like tearing up the soil. I think about driving in cattle and crops or in Agricultural Simulator 2013 back in the day, and you know, when you use a moldboard plow, smaller especially moldboard plows in real life, you set it up so that you can kind of drop the tires on one side of your tractor into the furrow you create with the plow, and that, you know, lines you up for the next pass. And I've actually done it in real life with a very small plow, and it's cool to see how it works. And in games like Cattle and Crops and Agricultural Simulator 2013, you got that feel. There was an actual furrow there that you could drop the tractor tire into, and it actually kind of held you in there. You could, of course, get out of it, but even without having to hold your steering wheel in place, it would kind of keep you and guide you in the furrow, because it was, you know, a pretty significantly deep little trench going on. That would be really cool. It's probably one of the biggest things that I think would change Farming Simulator at this point. With the addition of seasonal cycles to 22, I think 3D terrain, actual 3D deformable reactive terrain is the next big thing that would really drastically change how Farming Simulator works. And I don't know, will we see it? Who knows? If the Farming Simulator franchise continues on for another half decade or another decade, which hopefully it does, or maybe we'll see it in that time. One can dream, right? Ooh, you know what? I didn't even think about it, but I think we need straw for the horses too, don't we? We have to use straw for bedding? If so, we're going to have some straw. So basically, this harvest, with a little mowing that we're going to need to do, is going to basically set us up to do horses. That seems to be what, at least this field specifically, is setting us up to do horses. What did I forgot to lower my pickup. Not picking up any straw here. Yeah, so I think that's going to be the next step. We got some forestry stuff. We did a tiny, very tiny, little bit of forestry. Made an equally tiny amount of money from it. We kind of explored. We brushed the surface of that portion of the game. And horses, I think, will be the next one. That will get us into some animals. And the new animal that became available in 19, which I think will be a good one to do. And like I said, I think we'll do cotton on field 12, so that'll get us in. We will have covered a lot of the new aspects, at least briefly covered some of the new aspects of the game. Forestry is not really a new aspect, but I would love to do more of it once we maybe get a little bit more money. When we saw how much money we made from doing the little bit of forestry that we did, which was not very much, and it took a pretty considerable amount of work to do that. So eventually, I think forestry, you can make some good money doing it. Efficiency would be very helpful. So if we can get some of the bigger equipment, be a little bit more efficient with it, then I think we could turn that into something that's a little more worthwhile in terms of time. What's always worthwhile in terms of your time is silage, but I don't even know if we're going to do silage in this one. Silage has been around in the game for over 10 years now. I think the BGA first came about in Farming Simulator 2011, if I remember correctly. It was like the Platinum expansion for 2011 that first introduced the BGA. And, you know, every time I watch a YouTuber or something play Farming Sim, they always do silage. Every time I've gotten on a multiplayer server, they're doing silage. I realize that silage is a very good way to make money in this game. in terms of, income per acre or per hectare, silage far exceeds the standard crops, oats, barley, wheat, and that kind of stuff. Even corn harvested with a combine harvester for grain won't make nearly as much money as you can make from silage. So I understand why people always are doing it, but it's so many people have done it, and I've done it so many times. And to be honest, silage is something that is better done in multiplayer. I actually really understand why people do it in multiplayer, because that's when silage is at its best, in my opinion. With the way that the forage harvesters work, and with the way that the hired workers in this game, with their limitations, silage is really a much more fun job to do in multiplayer, where you can keep the forage harvester running constantly. You can have a couple people running trailers full of silage to, whatever clan you're putting it in. It's definitely a better experience when you do it in multiplayer. So I would guess, I don't know, we'll see how this goes. I don't think the series is going to go long enough for me to even get into silage, but if we get into silage, it's going to honestly end up being like one of the last things that we do in this game. Probably would have been faster to go the other way, tabbing through, but oh well. We're tearing through these fields very quickly, aren't we? The problem we're going to have now is, of course, I put bales on this field. And I can't just come through and fertilize the field. I got to remove the bales first. Same for cultivation. Everything's going to be waiting for me to move the bales, so. Oh well. Not much I could do about it, but it's not ideal. I'd love to keep everybody moving, workers getting the next tasks done. In the base game Farming Simulator, vanilla Farming Simulator, you really want to turn your fields over as fast as possible, because they only take, well, I mean, you look at it, we harvested that field 15 in the first episode, so that would have been on day 1 of the game, and here we are day 2 of the game, basically, the very beginning of day 2, 24 hours later, and we're harvesting it again. So the faster you can turn those fields over and get crop growing in them, the better. And this will be basically the last time we have that experience, because although you have the option to play with seasonal cycles or not in Farming Simulator 22, at least that's what it sounds like, you have the option. There's no way I'm not playing with seasonal cycles. They're finally bringing it to the game. Once the seasons mod came out for 17 and for 19, I basically never played without it again, except for a series like this or a series like my $10 million challenge, where the whole purpose was to play pretty vanilla. I just couldn't play without seasons. So the fact that they're bringing it to 22, we will probably never play 22 without seasons on. So this will be the last time we have this experience of, a field going from just being harvested to fully ready to be harvested again in 24 hours. Man, can you imagine if it worked that way in real life? That would be... You wouldn't need nearly as much farmland if you could grow a crop every 24 hours. How many straw bales do we even have right now? Whoa! Got the pickup again. I raised the pickup so I wouldn't get that stupid message, you don't have access to this land, just because it annoys me when it comes up, but then I forget to lower it. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 so far. 9 bales so far. And we're about halfway done as far as baling goes. Not bad. Straw bales aren't really worth much, but we should be able to sell some of these. We will, of course, have to store some of them in order to keep them for the horses, but we should be able to sell some. He's almost done cultivating that field. Once he's done cultivating, it'll be time to get another crop in. What do we do now? I think we've just about done all of the, I guess what I would call cereal crops. Not what I would call, what are cereal crops. We've also done canola. What else should we do in that field? Because we haven't really done barley, but barley and wheat are so similar, there's really not much point. And we haven't done potatoes or sugar beets. Potatoes require a special planter. Sugar beet you can do with a regular planter, but I don't have a regular planter. I have a seeder. So I don't have the ability to plant either of those. I do need to do, probably should do a crop that has some straw in it, just to make sure I keep some straw going for the horses. I think we might, though, lease the equipment to do one of either potatoes or sugar beets. And I guess sugar beets is the newer crop, so maybe we'll do that. Plus, sugar beets can be planted with a regular planter, which would then also allow us to plant corn and cotton. If we get a regular planter, we can do corn and cotton and sugar beet. That's perfect. Man, look at that. Just thinking a little bit, using the brain, look what happens. There we go. There's nothing unrealistic about running into your combine with your baler. Nothing whatsoever. Alright, I think we're going to pause here. We're going to give the combine a little time to get going, or get a little bit of space so we're not running into him constantly. So in the meantime, he is pretty much done. Is that going to be considered done? Yes. Awesome. All right. We're going to take him. We're going to use store deliveries mod, just so I don't have to drive all the way down to the store. And we're going to get ourselves a planter real quick. And then we'll set him off here on this field with, I think we'll do, we'll do the sugar beets on that small field. And then we'll do corn on 14 and cotton on 12. Yeah, I think that's the way we will do it. That'll get us, we'll have gone through a lot of the crops at that point. So, set our store delivery point. And planters. What do we have for small planters? This one is the cheapest. These two look to be pretty much the same. I don't really know what the difference is, if I'm being completely honest. This one's a little bigger. It's actually not any more expensive. You're supposed to use these two together, though, because this by itself has a tiny little grain tank. But I happen to know that generally this grain tank actually lasts quite a while with a lot of these crops. Well, we're going to put it on a worker. So I don't mind getting, well, I mean, we could do this. It'll be a little quicker, won't it? Corn, sugar beets, and cotton, which is what we need. So I'm just going to get this. I'll get this one, lease it. Because I don't think we'll have it very long. So we're just going to go ahead and lease it. And we got some seed in it. I don't think we have any seed anywhere. If we do, I don't remember it. So let's just go ahead and buy some seed real quick. Again, taking full advantage of the store deliveries mod, so I do not have to drive all the way to the store to get it. So, to that, refill the seed, and let's set him off. So let's see, this was sugar beet I decided I was going to do on this field. So let's set it to sugar beet. At some point, we can also do sunflower, which will be nice. Maybe if we do sunflower, we'll actually use the sunflower header for the combine, because otherwise, sunflower is basically just like doing corn. There we go. Now, the only kind of downside to this particular planter is that it doesn't fertilize at the same time. It would probably be ideal if it did. So we got, just run back in here real quick, this Limken planter. If you go up just a little bit more, it's just a little bit more expensive, the Tempo V8, it will actually seed and fertilize at the same time. This front tank can handle either seed or fertilizer, which apparently so can this, supposedly. Well, I don't remember. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I have no idea what I'm talking about. There's a reason I almost always ended up using, not using the Limken, but now I'm not so sure I know what I'm talking about. Go backwards, man. Come on. Didn't have the extra or enhanced vehicle shuttle control, you know, forward reverse control active. Oh, they did. It's almost always the first thing I do when I get in a vehicle, but. Alright, if we can go move some of these bales, then we can start getting this field ready as well. So we'll just be moving right along. Alright, a little higher up. Should be pretty good. Stab it. Take it over by another one. We'll move two at a time. I'm going to go store some of these straw bales in a shed, but not too many. Probably maybe like 4 of them. We'll just stick in a shed until we need them for the horses, which shouldn't be too long. I'm pretty much planning on buying horses as soon as this harvest is over. So maybe like 4 for now. The thing is, if we can keep, well, I take it back. I decided I wasn't going to do crops. I decided on none of them have any straw in them. Maybe we should keep a few more, just to make sure. I mean, the thing is, we can harvest a crop every 24 hours, basically. So the corn, cotton, and sugar beets that we're going to grow right now are not going to, you know, tomorrow we're going to be harvesting them. So then another 24 hours after that, we can have another crop in the ground, or another crop being harvested that has straw in it. So our straw needs are not that great. We only need about 2 days worth of straw for the horses. And that shouldn't really take very much. Unfortunately, I don't really know how much it is. That, you know, that's another thing I would love to see come to Farming Simulator is better planning and management tools. There's no real indication of how much food your animals eat until you actually have some animals and you start to fill up their trough and you see, okay, you know, the food trough could take 10,000 liters, and that's, or 6,000 liters, and that's enough for 6 days. Okay, so that many animals is going through about 1,000 liters of food a day. Until you get to that point, there's no way to really plan ahead. And I wish there was, because in, you know, again, in real life, I don't expect Farming Simulator to be exactly 100% realistic, but it would be nice to have some of these aspects of realism. You know about how much an animal is going to eat. I mean, people have been raising and breeding animals for quite a long time. We know about how much an animal is going to eat. I mean, I've heard the numbers, and I don't know what the numbers are off the top of my head, but you know, if you're raising beef cattle, there's a certain, you know, number, pounds or percent of their body weight, you know, how much percent of their body weight they're going to eat per day. So as, you know, no matter how much they weigh, as they grow, which is kind of the way you raise beef cattle, you can calculate ahead of time. I mean, you don't have to wait for it to happen. You don't have to wait for them to eat for a day and see how much they eat. You can plan for how much they're going to eat beforehand. And other things like, how much seed is it going to take me to replant these fields? I have no idea. I probably don't need 2,100 liters of seed to replant these fields. But different crop types have different seeding rates. So it takes less seed to plant a field of canola than it does to plant a field of wheat or barley. But how much? Well, I don't know. You know, that's something that the community always ends up testing and kind of releasing those numbers. But again, in reality, these things are well known. We have agronomists and seed companies have recommendations for how densely populated the field of a certain crop should be. So, you know, corn, you have a recommended population that you want to plant that at. So many seeds per acre, for instance. And so you know, okay, if I know how much I need to get. I take that and I multiply it out by the number of acres I'm planting, and I know how much seed I need. It would be nice to have those kind of planning tools in Farming Simulator as well. So if I know I'm going to plant field 15 in sugar beets, well, how many liters of seed do I need in order to do that? So I can purchase stuff a little bit more, you know, intelligently. I don't know if intelligently is really a word. I get that in Farming Simulator, you know, you don't really have to do that. You basically buy the pallet of the seed and you just keep using it and using it. But with the new seasons functionality coming in, I'm not replanting every 24 or 48 hours, right? I'm going to have to go through a whole year. I don't necessarily want to buy 2,000. What am I doing here? This is not where grain goes. Anyway, I don't necessarily want to buy 2,000 liters of seed if I'm only going to use 500, right? I would love to be able to just buy 500. But as the game stands right now, at least in 19, you have no way of really knowing how much you're going to use, especially because it varies by crop type. So until somebody comes out and does the testing and says this is how many liters of seed you use to plant corn, this is how many liters of seed you use to plant sugar beet, you really have no idea. So more wish list items. In real life, the reason I would love to have something like that, would everybody use it? Probably not. I mean, most people would probably just still buy the whole pallet of seed, and when they run out, they'll buy a new pallet of seed. Not really give it a whole lot of thought. The fact that is kind of made, that functionality is made possible by the fact that you only have seeds. This one fill type called seeds that can plant almost every crop in the game, which is in itself very unrealistic, right? I mean, you don't buy just generic seeds and then choose whether you want to plant wheat or barley or canola with those seeds, right? You have to actually buy wheat seeds in order to get wheat. And if that was done in the game, then you would have a whole lot more incentive to not buy a 2,000 liter pallet of seeds when you're only going to use 200 to plant a field, right? Because you'd be buying 2,000 liters worth of wheat seeds, and it might take you 10 plantings to go through them or something. You know, I'm just kind of making these numbers up really, but when you only have one generic seed fill type, then it's, I don't know, it's not as bad. It doesn't require as much planning. But the reality of farming is that it requires a lot of planning. Farmers do not just haphazardly go out into their fields and start doing stuff. There is a great deal of planning that goes on in, really, I would say, all farming pretty much throughout history, but especially in modern farming. There's a ton of planning that goes on. And so I feel like you're missing out on a real part of the farming experience. This utter lack of any planning going on. It just doesn't fit for me. There will be some of that built into 22 because with production chains, you are going to have to plan ahead a little bit. If you're wanting to produce a certain finished item like bread, then you can only plant certain crops, right? That can then be turned into flour that can then be baked into bread. So you will have to plan a little bit. But in terms of field planning, like fertilizer, how much fertilizer do you use per acre? No idea. That's again, it's a number that somebody in the community has to go do the testing and kind of come back to the rest of us and say, yeah, this is how much fertilizer you use per acre. Fertilizer is very expensive, even in this game. So if I only need to buy 1,000 liters of fertilizer, or do I need to buy 2,000? I don't know. It would be nice to know that stuff. Lime is one that gets me, because the trailers for lime can handle a lot. Like the smallest one, on its smallest setting, handles what, like 9,000 liters worth of lime? Do you need to fill it? Lime only comes in, is it 1,000 or 2,000 liter big bags? So, how much do you need to do a field? Do I need to buy multiple bags? I have no idea, because there's nothing built into the Farming Simulator game that helps me with that tells me, or that helps me calculate how much lime I would actually need to use. So at some point, hopefully we'll see that kind of functionality come in. With the Precision Farming DLC, I started playing with that kind of late, actually, in Farming Simulator 19. But I had a lot of fun, because something like lime, it actually changes quite a bit. You're no longer just applying a set amount of lime or fertilizer to a field. You're actually testing the soil properties like pH and nitrogen content, and then you're applying lime or fertilizer, whichever is whichever one we're talking about, based on those numbers and based on the soil type to try to bring it up to the ideal value, either for that soil type or for the crop that you planted. Which, that is really so cool, and again, even more so, would warrant some kind of planning tools. I did see one of the actually global company mods that came out at one point was the field calculator, and it had values for seed usage, fertilizer usage, and things like that. Get off of my, and like this kind of stuff. Come on, like, get off of ports. Jeez Louise. Anyway, the field calculator mod, it had values that it knew and could calculate for each field on a map how much seed you would use, how much fertilizer you would use, or manure or slurry, whatever it was. And that was really, really cool. That something like that built into the game would be great. I think that would add a whole element to the game that doesn't currently exist, that kind of planning element. Again, I just go back to the planning aspect of it, because real life farming requires a lot of planning and a lot of details, and that aspect is, in my opinion, really missing from Farming Simulator. We're just getting a whole... Farming Simulator 22 hasn't even come out yet. We're already putting together a whole wish list. And as normal, you know, the modding community will jump on a lot of this stuff. And because, in my opinion, Giants has done a pretty good job so far with what I've seen of building more functionality into the base game, that frees up modders to do even more. You know, modders won't have to worry about making the Seasons mod, for instance, because it already exists. It's already built into the base game. Production chains, although I'm sure people will come out with more types of production chains than already exist, a lot of the work that has to go into making that mod work from a scripting perspective won't have to be done anymore, because that functionality already exists in the game. All you really need to do is change the inputs and outputs. So that should make it much easier. So my kind of hope is that it will free modders up to work on even more stuff and even more cool stuff. There's never a shortage of awesome mods for Farming Simulator. The modding community is one of the true strengths of the Farming Simulator game and franchise as a whole. If it wasn't for modders, I mean, we would be so lost with this game. It's a cool game. It's a great game in its base functionality, but it is an amazing game when the modders get a hold of it. I mean, you look at right now where Farming Simulator 19 is kind of at the end of its life. It's at the end of its mod development, if you will. I would imagine there's not going to be too many more people churning out mods for 19 because 22 is coming out. The mods that exist right now and what you can do is a completely different game than when 19 first came out. I mean, so completely different. And that'll happen for 22 as well. I know it will. I can't wait until it does. It's gonna be a lot of fun to see what modders do. I mean, some of these modders are they're just geniuses. I have no idea how they do what they do, but it's awesome. Man, we got our field work's all we've done today. It's probably all we're gonna get done today. Let's see. Switch over here real quick. I need to. There we go, so I can see what I'm doing. Hour into the stream already, and all we've really done is our fields. I mean, we need to do them, but well, I guess this is farming, isn't it? This is Farming Simulator. Dump this off. We should have a healthy amount of oats now in the silos. Enough oats to last us and our horses quite some time. How much do we have? Oats. Yeah, 24,000 liters of oats. That'll last us a while. We should be good with that for quite some time. Let's go drop this off. I'm going to hook this tractor back up to the fertilizer sprayer so we can get that going again. This very slow tractor. I keep looking down at the speedometer kind of in the heads-up display, and it says 25. And I'm like, wait, we're not going 25. And I forget that I changed it back to kilometers per hour. So, because when I'm playing this game and not recording, this series at least, I do tend to play with guidance steering. You know, it's a funny thing. Farming Simulator has had the ability to show, I forget exactly when they put in the ability to change units. So instead of hectare, you know, the size of your field being shown in hectare, you could see it in acres. You could see your speed in miles per hour instead of kilometers per hour. I forget exactly. I don't think all those came in at the same time, but always, and still to this day, they only show the size of your equipment, if it has a working width, in meters. Like, go into the store. All this stuff. Working width. It's all shown in meters. They never show you feet. So anyway, that said, when you're using the guidance steering mod shows what you're kind of setting the working width to. And if you have your units set to, like your distance unit set to miles, it'll show that in feet. It'll show your working width in feet, which is really nice. I like it. However, if the auto width function doesn't work correctly, which happens, not very often, but occasionally it happens, or you want to try to set it on your own, a lot of times the auto width function doesn't work well with equipment that goes out to the side. So a plow or a trail behind mower, like the New Holland Moco mower that comes in the game. Auto width doesn't pick those up very well because they're kind of off to the side. The width that it's actually working is off to the side, but where the tractor has to drive is, of course, in the center line of the tractor, and it doesn't know how to deal with those things separately. Maybe a little bit of a shortcoming of every GPS mod I've ever used in this game. Not to knock them, because I'm sure quite complicated to make the mod work anyway, let alone trying to build that type of functionality into it. But those ones you kind of have to set up on your own. I need to stop this guy or he's going to start running into bales. And stop. Let's see. Back to you. Drop it. I want to go get the cultivator and get it working. That's the thing that's going to take a while. So sometimes with those things you have to set it manually. Like the Moco mower, I know, is a big one. It doesn't. You basically can't get the auto width to work correctly on it because it won't register the width correctly. Because that thing mows is like 3 meters, I think, maybe, or 4 meters mowing width. But that 4 meters is completely offset outside the tractor, so that your tractor is not driving on the grass that you're trying to mow. So it sets the width of, like, I don't know, 6 point something meters or something like that, because it needs that other side to be even with the center line of the tractor in order for it to work together. Now you can make it not work that way. If you set the width manually, you can make it work. You can set the width to 4 meters and you drive the tracks, and you're driving on a different track than it's actually mowing. And that's fine. It works perfectly well. But the problem with the guidance steering is it won't do that on its own. You have to set that up. So you have to manually enter the working width, and when you do that, you don't have the working width in feet because the game won't show you that. I still don't quite understand why. I can choose my units in distance as miles. I can choose my units in area as acres. Yet store descriptions don't change. They are always shown in meters. Why? It doesn't make any sense to me why. I think they even show you, well, of course now it's not going to work, the working speed. I'm pretty sure if you have miles, well, let's just go do it. Why not? Let's see, it's in here. Measuring unit. Miles. Okay, now we go back to the store and we look at working speed. It shows me that in miles per hour. So why can't it show me this in feet? I mean, it's just a simple conversion. Burger, what? Miles to feet is a simple conversion. You know, just like miles to kilometers is not a difficult conversion. It's something like, this is what computers are actually really, really good at, is doing calculations. So no understanding of why that has not already been done. Why can't you show me the width in feet? But given that it can't, if you're going to use the guidance steering mod and you're going to have to set it up manually on your own, it's easier to have your units set in kilometers so that the guidance steering mod will show you meters, and you can set it quite easily that way. Trying to set it by feet it's actually kind of weird. I don't have it installed, so I can't show you guys, but you can tell that the mod works in metric units, because you can change, when you go to change the working width, you can actually even change how much you're adjusting it by. So there's a little, arrow system where you can change the increment of your adjustments. And when you do it and your units are set to miles, and so you're working in feet, the adjustment is like 3.2 something feet. And you change it to the next one, it's like 1.6 something feet. It's like, okay, it's some really weird, right? If you're not familiar with like metric to standard conversions, it would make no sense. Like you're incrementing in these really odd numbers of feet. So it's very weird. It's not the most useful, and you can just tell that it's set up to work in metric units. So I usually set my distance setting to kilometers, just so that stuff all coincides with each other and is much less confusing.